It's lovely.
Is it lovely?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So it's some notes.
We're back. What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan, and we're here to talk about the San Francisco Giants today, and they're absolutely furious fan base, and actually rightfully so. If you consider how the last couple years have gone, if you consider how the last couple off seasons have gone, with Arson Judge, with the Carlos Correa debacle, and this year, for some reason, the ownership, the general manager, Farhan, thought things would be different, and they struck out twice more this offseason by going after Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto. And to add insult to injury, both those guys ended up with the Dodgers. So we're going to get into what little bit of news is out there, but the rest of the show is going to be based around the furious fan base. Why do they have reason to be so angry? We've got a lot of things to be angry about.
Smoky, yeah.
We'll touch on a couple other topics regarding that as well. How the team is covered around the Bay Area, the attendance of the team. Recently, KNBR laid off a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So don't listen to radio shows. No.
And hey, let's face it, a lot of people probably listening to the show are 49ers or Warriors fans, and you've had a lot to cheer about in the last few years regarding those teams. What are the Warriors on their fourth NBA championship with the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr run, and the 49ers are making another deep run into the playoffs and perhaps a Super Bowl this year. And you know, that's where a lot of the media, that's where a lot of the eyeballs and sports coverage is centered around the Bay Area. They've forgotten about the San Francisco Giants. And for good reason. But let's get into a couple things today. Not a whole lot of news out there on the baseball front and or San Francisco Giants front. MLB Trade Rumors did put up a little profile about Sean Manaea. Again, remember, he opted out of his contract. We signed him last year to a 2-year, $25 million deal, but he opted out of that second year. They noted down at the bottom of the article that there doesn't appear to be a whole lot of demand for his services as of yet, although it has been a very slow off season. It does say the Giants reportedly are interested perhaps in a reunion. So, hey, you know, if he wanted to sign back for similar money than we were kind of already on the hook for when he didn't opt out, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. You could argue that the way he was used last year, kind of in a secondary role, kind of could have hurt his performance. But I actually thought in the second half of the year, he actually pitched pretty well. And they actually dive into some stats and some of the peripherals and some of the differences in pitches that he was throwing.
It's very flavorful.
And maybe that's why he started to kind of turn it on in the second half. But other than that, guys, we've got a really dry news day around the new year. The Giants, ladies and gentlemen, have not been eliminated from the 2024 playoffs yet, but they've certainly been eliminated in the eyes of many of their fans. We went from having a 3-time World Series manager in Bruce Bochy, and we essentially ran him out of town. And you remember the narrative around 2019 or whenever we got rid of Bochy, that, oh, he wanted to retire or whatever it was. He didn't want to retire. He still wanted to manage. He still would have managed the Giants. We ran Bochy out of town. We ran Brian Sabean out of town. Both those guys, I don't think, wanted to leave baseball, leave their role with the Giants. We traded in Bruce Bochy for hide your eyes. I have no idea. I don't know about the topic of this article.
It's very flavorful.
But we traded in Bruce Bochy for Gabe Kapler. And look, we did have 100-win season with Gabe Kapler when we still had our Hall of Fame catcher and Buster Posey. But everybody knows the result, what happened this past season. Bruce Bochy returns to managing. He wins a World Series with the Texas Rangers in his first season. And we ultimately part ways with Skinny Jeans Gabe Kapler.
Nice.
If this happened in any other sports market, Farhan Zaidi would have already been fired along with Gabe Kapler. he would have already been fired. Could you imagine this happening in New York or Philadelphia or even probably LA? Maybe it would have to happen with the Lakers to garner as much attention. But the Giants organization moved on from a 3-time World Series manager for Gabe Kapler. And then in the year that your 3-time World Series winning manager returned, he won a World Series with another organization.
Our processes and our practices.
This is why the San Francisco Giants fan base is absolutely furious. And it's affecting them at the box office. This is a team that has historically, for the last several decades, has been top in the league in attendance. I think for years they had a historic sellout streak of Oracle Park. Well, you can see what happened last year. Middle of the road, middle of the pack. They claim to average 30,000 a game. I'll take the under on that. That might have been in tickets sold and or given away. Most nights, that ballpark was 1/3, if half full. So you got fans all across San Francisco deciding with their wallets. They're not spending it on the San Francisco Giants anymore. No. They're probably more likely to go to a 49ers game or spend on some 49ers merchandise or still follow the Warriors and their continued run. Oh. Nobody cares about the Giants seemingly anymore in the Bay Area. And rightfully so. When they've made the decisions that they've made to run people out of town, i.e. Sabian, i.e. Bruce Bochy, and we bring in fitness model Gabe Kapler, who you had to fire 3 weeks left in the season. You've seen the media around San Francisco and the Bay Area. And look, we're not talking about the type of coverage that the New York teams generate, the type of sports talk radio that happens in Philadelphia and even in Los Angeles, and the coverage around a team like the Lakers or the Dodgers. San Francisco and their media historically kind of covers their team with kind of a lighter touch. And hey, we as Giants fans, we really root for our players. We hardly boo our own players, our own manager.
Yeah, that's definitely been my experience.
Very rarely will the boo birds rain down at Oracle Park. But you've seen the media in the Bay Area, if it's not already centered around the 49ers Super Bowl run and or the Golden State Warriors, they're certainly not paying attention to the San Francisco Giants. KMBR, the flagship radio station of the Giants, I think the Giants might even own part of it or whatever, they've cut a bunch of staff. This article notably talks about the morning host Paul McCaffrey, but they cut FP Santangelo and I guess won't be running a 51-year-old evening show and kind of be essentially the post-game show of the Giants on the radio. So that's very interesting that you have a distracted media in the Bay Area focused on the 49ers and Warriors. If this was in New York, Farhan Zaidi would have already been ran out of town.
But
Gabe Kapler would have been lucky to make it to how far he got with the Giants after the 2 poor performances after the 100-win season. If we were in any other market and this happened, if the Giants were in a bigger market and had a kind of a stronger media kind of focused upon them, and this happened, there would be a lot more heat on the ownership, on Zaidi. So you can see why this fan base is absolutely frustrated. The last thing I would do is try to spend our way out of it. I get the idea behind Yamamoto. I get the idea behind Ohtani. But once you strike 1, strike 2 on those guys, don't then start looking at age 31-year-old infielders who, even if they were on your team, paired up with what you have, aren't going to make a whole lot of difference. I would take advantage of the fact that you're not covered like you are in New York, like you are in Philadelphia. Bottom out this year. Play your younger players. Nobody's expecting this team to compete for a World Series. Nobody has high expectations for this team. Perhaps if you played some younger players and gave some of the fans a little bit of hope, couldn't get much worse than your 17th ranked attendance. And if you could hover around 500, if new manager Bob Melvin can instill some confidence and he can have some things to look forward to, I would rather bottom out than sign Matt Chapman, Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, even all three of them. Even if you were able to get all three of them, I'll pass on that. Because I still think you'd be middle of the road when you're comparing yourself to the Dodgers, to even a Diamondbacks team that made the World Series, to a Padres team that I'm sure is going to be looking to outperform their last couple seasons. I'm passing on all these middle tier free agents now that we've struck out on the big game hunting. I'm passing on these guys. Let's play the younger players. It can't get much worse. The manager you ran out of town just won a World Series.
Bruce.
It can't get much worse than that. So let's bottom out. You'll probably still, because of the summer and the great weather in San Francisco and the allure of that ballpark and some of the other teams coming into town, you'll probably still hover around middle of the pack attendance-wise. But if you can find out if some of these younger players are going to be a part of your future, let's do that this year. Let's do that this year. And then you might be able to convince me next year if there are free agents like 31-year-old Matt Chapman types or Blake Snell types who are 30 years old. Farhan Zaidi doesn't have a great history of signing free agents. So I'm not sure we should trust them to do anything at this point.
This is the week.
Except play some of these younger players that he's drafted and or developed. Let's see that play out because we might have to make a change in the front office if things continue to decline. And hey, if the Rangers go back to back, Giants fans, I'm sure, although happy for Bruce Bochy, are going to be absolutely furious. So this fan base has been tortured the last couple years.
A little bit, yeah.
By the decisions of the ownership, by the decisions of Zaidi, by the decisions of Mr. Fitness Model, Burger Critique, Gabe Kapler. The media around the Bay Area has been distracted, whether it's because of budget cuts, whether it's because of the 49ers, whether because of the Warriors. And so Zaidi can probably walk around the Bay Area with his head held high and not get pelted like he would in some other city because there's not this ongoing criticism of him and his job and his decisions. But we've got a big year obviously coming up. That's probably why they're maybe going to make questionable moves like signing these older free agents. I hope they hold off. I will not hold them accountable for having a down year this year. I mean, look at this roster. We can certainly hold Zaidi accountable for producing this roster, but we still are where we are. We are where we are.
I do think we can always be improving.
And this is who we've got moving forward. So we'll be good Giants fans. We'll root for these guys. We've got a 24-year-old catcher to be excited about. We've got a 22-year-old Marco Luciano, who it feels like we've been hearing about for a decade, which I know is impossible, but I do think the Giants did sign him when he was 16 years old to big money. 6'1", 178. I'll take the way over on that. This is a broad-shouldered, big, physical-looking guy that when he hits the ball, it's loud contact. So if he can play league average defense at shortstop, we could have some things to be really excited about. Casey Schmidt, obviously he showed some flashes last year. We'll see if he can stick in the big leagues or will he spend a lot of the year at AAA. Certainly if you sign a guy like Matt Chapman, the role of Casey Schmidt probably takes a dip and a dive. What about some of the guys we've seen the last few years? Lamont Wade Jr., don't call him Lamonte. Last year of his deals. Love the way he played last year at times. He's very selective at the plate, drew a lot of walks. I thought he was decent at first base. We've been treated to Brandon Belt the last decade or so, and he's a very good defensive third baseman. But I thought Lamonte Wade, a.k.a. Lamont Wade, held his own there. So we'll see. We've got a glut of outfielders to decide on and see what happens with these guys. Most excited, obviously, about Luis Matos, who was 21 years old. So we've got a frustrated fan base out here in San Francisco. I'll be here to cover it all season. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we will be back here to talk about the San Francisco Giants very soon.
Nice.
That was